Alia, if you're unable to, you just keep on listening because it is going to be bilingual. Um, and like I said, that it is like not, yani if you, I'll talk to you about it later, right? What exactly have you understood? And I'm going to give you alternate texts for that, all right? Now, coming to Iblis ki Majlis Shura, first of all, what we need to understand is that this critique is not just a religious critique, right? This is you can say a political science or an IR critique. And it talks about, it is now, this particular form, it was written in 1936, which is the epitome, which is the end, towards the end of Iqbal's life, right? He dies in 1938, right? So, for instance, we know about Bacon's essays, right? All the essays of truth, studies and all, right? So Bacon's essays are also written towards the end of his life, right? So when a person, or if you take the example of Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders or Robinson Crusoe, right? Those texts were written when Daniel Defoe was in his 70s, right? So he was quite mature. Similarly, when Bacon is writing, whatever he's writing, they are the crux or his life's fruit that he's presenting to the world, right? So Iqbal has been giving his ideas, his philosophy to the world. And it is not, we actually try to understand, and this is our dilemma, that Pakistanis, they understand him as a, poet who's just talking about Islam, religion, things like that. No. His philosophy is actually, if we use today's lexicon, it was an immensely decolonial take on the Western epistemology, Western philosophy, right? See, now the thing is that going to England in 1905, and he stays in England and then Europe, Germany, for 3 years only, right? Only 3 years. That's a very small time in the history, or, but that is something which changed him completely. How did it change him? Not change him in that sense, but it enriched his understanding, right? And that enrichment was not superficial. That was after reading all the Western philosophers and then integrating them in his PhD thesis, which he gave in Munich, to the University of Munich, right? First, he studied law for the first year. Everything that we do in 4 or 5 years, he just did it in 1 year, right? And then whatever we do, PhD or whatever we do in 5 years, 6 years time, he did it in 2 years time, right? So his life, and he gives this disclaimer. Iqbal gives this disclaimer, says this thing in his somewhere, that I have chosen this medium of poetry because of that I don't have much time, right? He understood this thing, that and he's declared this thing, that I have chosen this medium of poetry because it is pithy, it is epigrammatic, you can say more in less words, and that's why I have chosen this as a medium. It's not because I am a poet. Just, if Shakespeare was saying otherwise, he used to say that, call me a poet. I would like to be called a poet more than a dramatist, right? But here it is the other way around. It is saying that I'm adopting this medium of poetry in order to just give the message and whatever is his philosophical output was, right? So taking into account all the Western philosophy, Nietzsche, Kant, everybody, he writes his PhD thesis, right? And he becomes so profoundly impactful. His thesis is so profoundly impactful that a scholar like Anne Marie Schimmel, who's a German scholar, she adopts Iqbal for her life, for her complete life. And she was a Harvard University professor, right? She served in Harvard, at Harvard, most of her life, right? And she was, and if you start reading Anne Marie Schimmel, it is actually another world altogether. You'd be mesmerized, you'd be hooked, and you'd be drawn towards what she's saying. And it's so amazing that she understands the nuances of his poetry, Iqbal's poetry, and Iqbal's philosophical. See, all these philosophers, mostly philosophers, they have come from Germany. Yeah, there are many German philosophers, Goethe, Kant, many other, give me one or two more names. There are many, many philosophers. Philosophy is something, even Hermann Hesse, right? He was also a German, right? Who's written Siddhartha. His novel is called Siddhartha. So many, many philosophers came from German. German is a very rich nation, right? Now, coming to Iqbal, what are we talking about? We are talking about a person or a philosopher whom we have undermined. We have not really taken advantage or full benefit out of him. We have never tried to understand him just because he is too difficult to understand, right? Now imagine one of the essays that I gave you, or the book, Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam. This is a book of his essays, and they are not essays. They are his lectures delivered at Aligarh, and there was another college. He had delivered them there. And I was amazed to see the language that he's using. He's delivering them in English. This is his own English, right? So I was amazed to see that he is delivering those lectures and the audience is understanding them, right? How many of us, I imposed it on you people. How many of you really read that essay from that book, right? That's the question. And this Indo-Pak, these people, when he's delivering them at Aligarh, they are there to receive them, right? Just like Emerson gave his series of lectures on self-reliance at Harvard. You must have read that in that paper, right? So they were also a series of lectures that he delivered at Harvard, self-reliance, right? Similarly, Iqbal is also giving these lectures, and the people are recipient enough, reciprocal enough to understand those. Look at the level of understanding that we had, and we have lost it, right? And we're not even bothered by it, right? So, for example, nowadays, if you come to understand, and now because of this war and everything, you might have be cognizant of the fact that Iran, because he did a lot of poetry in Persian, for example, if there are 12,000 verses, he has writing 7,000 in Persian, right? And they have internalized his philosophy, right? Anne Marie Schimmel had internalized his philosophy. And she was a Westerner, right? And we here, unfortunately, we don't understand Iqbal. We don't want to understand Iqbal, but she not only understood him, but promoted and, talked about his philosophy openly, right? And the profundity of his philosophy is something which Anne Marie Schimmel, nobody can, really, there are others, of course, but Anne Marie Schimmel is one of those philosophers and academics who has really understood Iqbal and who has been able to convey the profundity of his philosophy to the audience also, right? So if you read Schimmel's articles, they are also class apart, and that's something that you will understand in once, if you just. Now let's come to the text itself. The text, first of all, we need to understand there are 3 stages in Iqbal's life. Critics usually divide Iqbal's life into 3 stages, right? The first stage is his first initial exploratory stage, right? Just like when, for example, if a child, or when he's a toddler or a very young child, what does he do? That is his exploratory stage. And what does he do? He always puts everything in his mouth, right? That's how he's exploring the things around a child. Isn't it like that? If you read the child psychology, they put everything in their mouth in order to explore and in order to get to know about that thing. That's their first instinct, right? So exploratory stage is something in which you are trying to get to know things, right? And that's why in that exploratory stage, we have those poems about children. And mostly they are, their idea is taken from the Western, writers, Pahad or Guleri, Makra or Makhi, Gay or Bakri. यानी बच्चों को आप पढ़ाते हैं ना, ये जुगनू, हमदर्दी, टहनी पे किसी शजर की तन्हा, बुलबुल था कोई उदास बैठा. So all these things, they are inspired from the maybe Western poets and all, right? या वो उनकी जो exploratory stage है, उसमें वो जैसे बोलते हैं कि सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, इस तरह का. तो ये exploratory. The second stage is his 1905 to 1908, only 3 years, right? And that stage is something in which he tries to now grasp the gravity of things, right? How? For example, very famous line is Musalman ko Musalman kar diya tufan Maghrib ne. That a Muslim becomes a Muslim because of being exposed to the Western philosophy, right? Now, I would like to give two disclaimers here. First of all, let's check the meaning. Let's understand the purest meaning of a Muslim and a kafir, right? A Muslim and a kafir. Who is a Muslim? I think I have explained it to you earlier also, but now I'm just going to say it once again, that a Muslim is a person who submits his will to the grandest creator or his creator, right? We call him Allah. You may call him Vishnu, whatever, whatever mythology your religion you belong to, right? But every religion understood that there is a higher authority. Every religion understands. A human being understands in the depth of his hearts that there is a higher authority, and we have to submit our, wills to that authority or that Allah. Why? Because once we submit, and you might be able to understand what I'm saying, and this is what actually I'm trying to take you in the picture also. When you submit your will to God Almighty, what happens? Now listen, I'm going to give you an analogy. Now listen to this. A mother, if she's warning her child or stopping her child from doing something, what is the motive of that mother? Protection. She wants to protect her child. She wants to protect her child, and she wants to protect him from harm, right? The mother is just a human being, right? And the child is her child, right? If she wants to protect a child and she is going to become even angry when the child is not listening to her, right? She's doing it for your own good, right? If we understand this philosophy, this is how our link is with the God Almighty. All right? We are submitting our wills to that God Almighty only because and only for the purpose that we should refrain from any harm, any evil, right? Understand? Now, if we do that completely, then our stature becomes elevated. How does it gets elevated? It becomes the stature of a mu'min, a Muslim, a person who had submitted his will to Allah or to God Almighty, and he keeps on listening to that inner call, in Emerson's words, right? If he keeps on listening to that, he is going to become a mu'min. Who is a mu'min now? Who is a mu'min? A mu'min is a person who comes in the folds or the shelter of Allah Almighty. A mu'min. So what were we saying? Mu'min. All right. So have you understood that just like you get elevated or you get promoted in an organization, in the same way, first you submit your will to that God Almighty, and then once you submit your will for your own good, you are elevated to the rank of a mu'min. And who is a mu'min? Who comes under the protection of Allah. If I say it in Urdu, जो अल्लाह की अमान में आ जाता है, मोमिन अल्लाह की अमान में आ जाता है. A momin is a person who comes in the protection of that God Almighty. Just imagine what a blissful thing it is to come in the folds or in the protection of. Then you don't have to fear about anything. Just imagine how liberating this thought is, right? So, first of all, we understand what a Muslim is, right? So I have actually, what am I doing? I'm dusting off those things which are the connotations which we have built in our minds. At times we think that Muslim, it is a scare. It is like there's so much baggage around this term of Muslim that we become wary of it. Islam, Muslim, oh no, if I'm an atheist, my attitude would be like that, right? But actually, a Muslim is a person who has submitted his will to that divine. Call him whatever you want, right? And the Mu'min is the person who has come under his protection. Now, a kafir or a kafara. Who's a kafir? Right? These are the disclaimers I'm giving right in the beginning. Who's a kafir? And what is kafara? Now, kafara is the root word of the word kafir. Kafara means to erase something. Kafara means, and if you say kafara, you put a shad on it, kafara, तो वो ज़्यादा शिद्दत के साथ आ जाते हैं. जैसे अल्लाह ताला कहता है एक जगह पे, युकफ्फिर अन्हुम सय्यातिहिम, उनसे उनकी बुराइयां अल्लाह ताला दूर कर देगा, एरेज कर देगा, उनको मिटा देगा. वाह, क्या बात है. ठीक है. सो कफरा or a kafir is a person who, whenever some good comes towards him or her, he wants to just erase it. Any goodness, any right thing, your mind is not accepting it and you want to erase it out of yourself. That is a mode of conduct. Kafir is a mode of conduct when you are refuting. What are you doing? You are refuting. What did Dr. Faustus do? He refuted all the words of scriptures and everything. So he did a kufr. He did a kufr. He did something which was, he refuted it. He erased every goodness that had befallen him. He had become the doctorate of divinity. Just imagine, instead of using his potentials for the benefit of the humanity, what was he doing? That he said, I'm going to refute all this law, this religion, this everything, divinity, everything, adieu, farewell. And I'm going to venture into necromancy, that forbidden art, right? This is what he did. So what did he do? He did kufr, right? He erased whatever goodness had befallen him. Whatever goodness he had earned, he erases it. Dr. Faustus. I'm just giving you the examples from literature so that you can relate with them. Understand? Now, after understanding the basic, getting the meanings of Muslim, Mu'min, and Kafir, I hope we are on one page, right? With this basic vocabulary in our minds, we're going to move forward.
Is that the word, the analogy of munafiq?
Oh, hypocrite. That is hypocrisy. Munafiq means, and munafiq again, thank you so much for giving that. Well, that's something, the subject matter today doesn't, go around it, but yes, that's a very important. Munafiq or nafaka means that you go from one side and you come out from the other side, just like a small tunnel sort of, you go from one side, you enter from one side and you come from the other side. That means you're two-faced. Understand? Nafaka actually means that, right? That's why munafiq or a hypocrite is the person who says one thing but doesn't do that, right? Who means the other thing, right? So these are basic. Now let's come back to Iqbal with these understandings. Now see, the thing is that when we read Western epistemology, when we read Western philosophy, we read Althusser, we read Derrida, we read Kafka, whatever, right? So they're theorizing. Althusser theorized. Karl Marx theorized. about certain things, right? And the world took it by that by their whatever they are providing, right? But we have actually not ventured into this philosophical angle, right? So that's why when we are doing world literature and translation, I wanted to bring this perspective also, right? Do you think that it is worth it? Right? We need to have, a open mind for understanding. All right. Now, so first of all, the first stage was his exploratory stage, right? His earliest poetry. Then 1905 to 1908, it is his Iqbal's second stage, which is kind of when he's trying to wake up and, giving understanding, develop an understanding, and then presenting it to the world also by saying that Musalman ko Musalman kar diya tufan-e Maghrib ne, I went there and I came to understand who, their society and societal model and everything, right? And why is ours different and why it should be different, right? So that's how he starts giving. And this is again an internal reflection when he says, Azabe danishe hazir se bakhabar hu main. Azabe danishe hazir se bakhabar hu main कि मैं इस आग में डाला गया हूं मिसले खलील. In other words, what is he saying? That I understand what is the dilemma of what is the contemporary dilemma. What is the contemporary world's dilemma? Why? Because I have been thrown in this fire just like Abraham was thrown in the fire, right? I am in the middle of this whole fiasco. मैं आग में डाला गया हूं मिसले खलील, right? Right? And then he could see agnosticism around, he could see atheism around, right? If Nietzsche is declaring this thing, now see, he took into, in his PhD thesis, he took into consideration all these biggest philosophers which the world has seen to this day. He's talking about Nietzsche. And what was that philosophy? That the old God is dead and the new one is unable to be, too weak to be born. What is he talking about? That philosophical, that reliance of yours towards that supreme God, that supreme God is no more there, right? So he's dead and we are, and the new is, the old God is dead and the new is unable to be born. This was the philosophy, right? So in this kind of a scenario where there is ladiniyat, ilhad, agnosticism, atheism, right, around, and this is 1938. 1919 has also happened, right? Balfour Declaration has also happened, right? Ottoman, how they have killed or cut the pieces of the Ottoman Empire into their cakes in their own belts of control. This is for you, France. This is for you, England. This is for you, right? This is how they did it. This is how they arrogated all these places, right? You will control Iraq, you will control Lebanon, you will control Syria, you are Palestine, this is, British is given the mandate in Palestine. Now you've seen all that, right? And that's why in this stage, he says, Farang ki rage ja panjay Yahud mein hai. Farang ki rage ja पंजाए यहूद में है. और से सुनो, ऐसा नहीं है कि तुम समझ रहे हो कि ये बस तुम्हें जो नजर आ रहे हैं ये, no, even these French or all these different communities around the world, or countries around the world. फरंग की रगे जाऊं पंजाए यहूद में. Right? Just look at the prognosis that he's giving. And it is so relevant today. You're seeing it up close and personal in 2026, aren't you? Netanyahu asked Trump to do this thing. Yes. He's bound to do it. Right? Okay. So this, but then he also is cognizant and enough to say that मेरी निगाहें तेज चीर गई दिले वजूद. जब ये बात कर रहा है कि फरंग की रगे जाम पंजा यहूद में, किसकी जरूरत थी उस वक्त ये बात कहने की? किसी की जरूरत थी नहीं. तो वो कह रहे मेरी निगाहें तेज चीर गई दिले वजूद. So in this second stage, he understands what the world is about to do, what are they doing, and what all they are going to do. And under what influence are they doing all this? Under what influence are they doing it? And that's why from 1908 till 1938 is his third stage, which is the most developed stage of his poetry and his message. From 1908 to 1938, right? And then at that point in time, it's very important. You know, there's a book, Iqbal and Quranic Wisdom. Professor Munawar has written this thing, right? And he writes an anecdote that foreigner came to Iqbal Manzil in Lahore, in Iqbal's place, Iqbal's home, and he's sitting in the drawing room, and he said, to Iqbal, you have read all books of philosophy and religion and everything, right? You've read so many philosophers, your thesis and everything. So what is the most important book that you think of philosophy that you think has influenced you most? And what actually is the best philosophical work? So Iqbal said to him, 1 minute. He went in, brought the Quran and gave it to him. And he said, this is the book of wisdom. And this is the philosophical work that has influenced me the most. Right? And that's why at this stage, from 1908 to 1938, he even becomes Quran ka sharih. And exegesis, he's doing the exegesis of Quran even. He's explaining things to us, right? जैसे अगर आपके पास आयत है इन्ना सलाती व नुसुकी व महयाया व ममाती लिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन. When you say that my inna salati, मेरी नमाज, मेरी सलात, inna salati व नुसुकी, और मेरा जो चलना है, my gait, my way of adopting things, ठीक है? Nusuki wa mahyaya, and my life, and wa mamati, my death. ठीक है? Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen is for that greatest Lord Almighty. If this is the ayat, what is Iqbal writing? What is he writing? मेरी जिंदगी का मकसद तेरे दीन की सरफराजी, मैं इसीलिए मुसलमान, मैं इसीलिए नमाजी. This is the thought pattern of this person. Of course, he would be undermined. He would be relegated. He would be, thrown out of the main picture for our ulterior motives. Western philosophy usko alag se कहेगी. Eastern, माशाल्लाह, जो हमारा क्लर्जी का दिमाग है, वो उसको उस पे कितने फतवे लगाए थे. कुफर का फतवा लगाया था इकबाल पे. उन्होंने उस तरफ से कुफर का फतवा लगाया था. उन्होंने कहा था कि ये ज्यादा इस्लाम करता है बात, और किसी ने समझा ही नहीं उसको. हमने समझने की कोशिश ही नहीं की. हम एज पाकिस्तानी हमने समझने की भी कोशिश नहीं की. हालांकि the philosophy, The theory which Iqbal is giving is so profound that it actually elevates us to another level of existence. Right? So, now, let's, I'm going to just talk about one or two things, and then we're going to go for a break before we come back so that, you know, you freshen up a little bit, because then we are going to start with ابلیس مجلس شورا. See, not just, he does not only become the dai of Quran, or Quran ka share nahi banta. He doesn't do only the exegesis of the Quran. No, he understands what this lobby is doing. Whom you call Zionists today, whom you are calling Zionists today, they have been changing their names throughout history, let me tell you. Their names have been always different. Today it is Zionism. That came, this Zion, this term came at the end of 1896 when Herzl wrote that pamphlet, that short book, which is, by the way, taught at Columbia University. And you know what? Who was the professor who was teaching it? He is a Christian Palestinian and Jordanian professor, Joseph Massad, Professor Joseph Massad. Write that name down. Just Google him, right? You'll get to know, right? He was teaching this. I got it from him. I got it from the library. I read it from cover to cover. That was just my beginning of the book. That was just the first book that I read. One of the first books, right? So this term Zion or Zionism, it was coined by him, right? And that's how it has come to be known in today's world. But their names have been changing throughout history. Let's understand this. पहला इनका नाम कुछ और था. अब मैं किसी और तरफ नहीं जाती ताकि आप लोग ज्यादा ही वो ना हो जाएं, परेशान ना हो जाएं कि मैम को क्या कहाँ से कहाँ में लेके जा रही हैं. बट लेकिन अल्लाह ताला ने ये बात कही भी है कुरान में कि इनके ऊपर, इन यहूदियों पे भी मैं मुसल्लत रखूंगा, जो इन्हीं में से लोग जो इनको क़यामत तक तकलीफ देते रहेंगे. Right? So today, what do we have? Jewish professor like Norman Finkelstein. He's a political scientist. Okay? He was removed from American academia because he was talking sense. He was ousted from academic circles but he's nonetheless, and his parents were Holocaust, affectees. But he is actually a good Jew who's talking about what's wrong and what wrong you're doing. So in other words, Allah knows it. And he's told you that he has put these, some form of this kind of these ism, like for example, Zionism these days, that I'm going to keep on, they are going to be imposed by all these isms, till Qiyamah, right? And that's what we see. So, isliye, ab Iqbal, what does it say? E maluk, e fikre chala ke Yahud. Look at this line. E maluk, e fikre chala ke Yahud means that these imperialist powers, maluk means imperialism. E maluk, e fikre chala ke Yahud, this banking system, right? This Jewish banking system. Okay? And the next part of the same line is E maluk, e fikre chala ke Yahud, Noor haq as-sinae Adam alud. Noor haq. the light of the truth of Almighty, and the light of the truth, Noor-e Haq as-Sinai Adam Alud. Hasn't this extinguished the light of the truth from our hearts? Banking system and all these things, imperialism. Just imagine these are the words. Now, of course, if these words are so powerful, they are a class apart, right? मैं तो ये कहती हूँ कि वेस्टर्न लिटरेरी थ्योरी के 100 लोग इस पे कुर्बान हैं, अगर आपने समझ लिया तो। हमने तो समझने की कोशिश ही नहीं ना करनी, इसलिए मैं आप लोगों के लिए लेके आई हूँ कि ये होना चाहिए, ठीक है? आगे भी बहुत कुछ कहते हैं। देखिए, Allah tells us that He has created human being in His own parto. नफ़क़त फ़ी रूही, मैंने तुम्हारे अंदर अपनी रूह फूंकी है। So हमारे, we all have those attributes of Almighty, right? We're not going to become Mansoor Hallaj in that understanding, in a superficial understanding. No, but yes, जमाल है, हमदर्दी है, प्यार है, ये सब चीजें इंसान के अंदर भी उसी तरह मौजूद हैं जिस तरह अल्लाह ताला, right? How much do we develop all these positive attributes in us? That's our own doing, right? So then in this stage, second stage, third stage की बात करें. In this stage, he also understands and he also makes us realize इन ताजा खुदाओं में बड़ा सबसे वतन है. शुरू में याद है क्या कहा था उसने? सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. बट अब आप क्या कह रहे हैं? इन ताजा खुदाओं में बड़ा सबसे वतन है, जो पैरहन इसका है, मजहब का कफन है. जो nation state, now there are many think tanks around the world who are talking about the ills of this nation state. The current state is yani form of the nation states, right? All right. So and then again this acha chale, I think let's go for a break, but it is going to be only 15 minutes break, because I cannot start the next thing immediately. So we're going to just do this.